morning, Jonathan. It's Wednesday, October the 21st. And morning is broken!
We're your consecrated hosts.
I'm Father Jeff, consecrated by holy orders.
I'm Jonathan, consecrated by baptism. And I'm a little bit sad today, Father.
Why are you sad?
Because it's October 21st. That means that
1 month after your birthday.
it is a month after my birthday.
It's the month's mind. If you had died a month ago, we would be remembering you today. So, now you're not sad anymore because we're remembering the gift of life. Jonathan, happy not your birthday,
You
but a month
really
ago.
have a way of bringing cheer to the world.
Yes, I do. That is my job. I just spread joy far and wide.
All right.
Look at you. You're happy now.
Oh my goodness.
We rejoice to be alive. Absolutely.
That is true.
Yeah. So are you, I was just kind of thinking about this where I know it is the 21st. We're heading towards the end of the month. Got to be thinking about Halloween. What are you doing for Halloween? Are you taking the kids out? Have you decided? Or I know everyone's kind of doing something different. I don't think... some cities I think are canceling Halloween. I haven't heard that for Omaha or for Gretna. I don't know.
I think we're going out.
Are you going to do some trick-or-treating with the kids?
They have costumes. So
What are your kids going to be this year?
JJ's going to be a ninja.
Okay. With the mask?
I think he has a mask. I don't remember. They're going to probably, when they go to doors.
Yep.
Josh was going to be a fireman.
Okay.
Because he really wanted the whistle.
With a face shield.
He really wanted the whistle.
You
And
really
Gemma
wanted the whistle.
is going to be a unicorn.
And she doesn't know it.
No, she does know. She loves her costume.
Oh, she loves unicorn.
She loves her costume.
Oh, they already have their costumes and they're allowed to play with them?
We tried it on her because she's little enough that
Got it.
you have to try it on her. But she loved having it on because it's big and fluffy. So she's like a big stuffy that it's just really cute.
Do you dress up? Like when you take the kids out, who takes the kids out? You, Genevieve, both of you? You go as a little family?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Dad used to take us out and then Mom would stay home and man the door.
Yeah, we leave a big bowl out. Well, because the last few years we've gone over to our in-laws' house to go trick-or-treating with them, with the cousins. And so then we're not even home. So we leave a bowl of candy out for the first person to take all of.
To take all of it?
Well, we hope they take one or two.
If you are not home, there's no reason to leave a bowl of candy on your thing. It's not like the kids are going to be deprived.
Neighbors might judge you.
Then be home. What do you care about what people think about you, Jonathan? You can't be judged. No. I'm just going to turn my light off.
Well, our kids, part of it, I think the kids wanted to leave some, they're like, oh, if people come to our house, but...
That's not a bad thing.
I, myself, could not care less.
Okay. I think a lot of people are going to be leaving the bowls on the door porches this year or at the end of the thing or... I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It's always the eve of All Saints for me. So, and for all of us. No, it's just for me.
Wow, Father.
But I ordinarily have the Vigil Mass of the Holy Day.
Mm-hmm.
And and this year Halloween is Saturday, so it'll be the Saturday evening Mass, which will also be the Sunday evening Mass. So it's not only the Vigil of All Saints, but it's the Sunday Vigil as well. The two land on top of each other this year. So I usually have that 5, so I don't get home till after 6:15 or whatever. My doorbell doesn't really work. So if you come and ring the doorbell, it's not going to ring. So I'm kind of in the back end of the house, so too bad.
I don't know if it was a friend that said this. Somewhere I heard they're going to be on their second story window. And they're just going to throw the candy at the kids.
Oh, that seems unsafe.
Maybe just drop poop.
Just drop poop? Is that what you just said?
That was they're just drop and then poop. I see how you got that, but that would, I guess that would be a trick.
That would be a trick, not a treat for sure. Speaking of tricks and treats, we've got some C.S. Lewis to work our way through. Yesterday we began this little appendix to the Screwtape Letters, which is Screwtape proposes a toast. And we got a few pages in, about 5 or so pages into the Screwtape proposes a toast. And as you recall, he's talking to all of these young tempters at the tempting school, academy, whatever, about kind of the state of affairs that we find ourselves, that the world finds itself in today.
Right.
And one of the things that he says, or that we left off with him talking about how, the really great sinners just don't seem to be there anymore. There's kind of a mediocrity of sin, but even though it's a mediocrity of sin, nevertheless it's effective in that it's that there's gobs of sinners, that there's just so many. It's just a whole different tack. Like the modern age, every age has its own particular temptations and difficulties and struggles, and he's kind of unfolding the temptations and difficulties and struggles in the middle of the 20th century.
So the morsels aren't as satisfying, but there's a lot of them.
That's right. This is a really great sin that you can sink your teeth into, but nevertheless, we're getting more people away from God. So, and when you think about it, he was right. He was writing here right kind of in the middle of World War II. And the 20th century turned out to be one of the bloodiest centuries in human history in terms of the amount of people who died by warfare. So, there are a lot of people, there's a lot of victory for the evil one, if you will, even if it's not great victory on the individual level. There's certainly great victory on the communal, sociological level. And I think we're going to get more into that today.
A little bit, yep.
So let's pick up. If your book happens to be paginated like mine and also yours, 192 in this version of the book is kind of where we left off. And we're talking about the very two phenomenon that we were just talking about. That there aren't many great sinners, but so the quality of sin is down, but the quantity of sin is up. It's kind of like everything. I find that even the quality of so many things today, not just sin, but just stuff, is down. I think, in manufacturing everything that is just kind of 3D printed or, shipped off to some sweatshop overseas that they manufacture it with the least amount of care, concern, regulations, whatnot, just to get a cheap product out there. It doesn't leave a whole lot of... There's a lot of beauty that's just been lost because of mass production.
Well, if you look at a lot of the things that were built in before this time too, but like the 50s or 60s, refrigerators or even the wagons, those old radio flyer wagons that are made out of steel.
The little red wagon.
They took a lot of...
They lasted forever.
And they had to, because parents couldn't just go to the store and buy another one.
Yeah.
That consumerism wasn't to the point where it's just like, now your fridge goes out. This happened to us last November. It's almost cheaper to buy a new one than to repair it. And so you just throw it out.
It's crazy, the amount of things that we do that with. So everything, and that kind of bleeds, I guess, even into the spiritual life. The spiritual life and the physical life, you can look around the world and you kind of know what's going on in the spirit. So he says, though they will, our catches will be ever more numerous, but they will consist increasingly of trash. Mm-hmm. That the sin is just terrible. But nevertheless, it is sin, and sin is sin, and it separates us from God. So I think this is a good point, though, Jonathan, for Christians, for us to hear, because I think there are so many people who maybe subconsciously or just on the verge of their conscience would say something like, well, I haven't killed anyone and I haven't committed adultery, so I guess I'm doing okay.
Right, I'm not doing anything that bad.
I'm not doing anything that bad. Yeah, but you don't need to do anything that bad to be separated from God.
Right. It's good that you're not doing anything that bad, but you're still doing bad.
They're still bad. They're still evil, and that evil separates you from God. And the more we stay in a separation from God, the more perilous our situation becomes. And so, just because you're not doing anything, quote unquote, that bad, doesn't mean we're good. Not bad doesn't equal good. If someone says to you, Jonathan, how you doing today? Not bad. Well, that's not good.
Yeah.
It's also not good. So we need to strive for more than that. So that's exactly why Screwtape says this is a change for the better. Even though it's not as satisfying, nevertheless, we have all of these. We are frustrating the plan of the enemy. We're frustrating the plan of God. Because what does God want?
Everyone.
He wants everyone. Saints. He wants to turn us into saints.
Yes.
And if we're not achieving holiness, if we're not good, then we must be somewhat bad. And this is what his thing.
Well, in heaven demands by its nature good.
Yes.
It's not just
no bad.
It's not a lack of bad.
Right.
It is. We are called to that something higher. Heaven isn't just mediocre.
Right. That's a good point. That good is something. Good is good. And here's my ticket into heaven. So this is my good. I am good. There is no ticket into hell because evil is an absence of good. And so I don't have my good to get into heaven, which means
I'll get in.
You've got to have something good. And when you don't have something good, then it's like, well, I didn't do anything that bad, but I don't have good. Yeah. So heaven is not for me.
No. Use an example from kindergarten.
Oh, here we go.
If you're bad, you might get a note sent home or something like that if you were that bad. But there's sometimes reward systems like, oh, you did something extra good, you get a star. And if you get 10 stars, you get something out of the prize box.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you just went along and didn't do anything that bad, so you never get anything sent home, which is a good thing. We want that. But then you don't do anything extra good or good, you're not going to get the prize box.
Exactly.
Heaven's the ultimate prize box.
You're just going to have to practice your letters. A.
That's what Josh was very motivated by that. And so he's like, oh, if I have to do this to get a star that enables me to go to this prize box, he's going to do it.
Absolutely.
And
we used to have that in elementary school. I remember if we did really exceptionally well on our assignments or something, Sister Josephine would have these little card things tucked in our workbooks or whatnot, and you would collect these little, they were just cut out thingies, and when you got so many of them, then you got to go to the box, and she had little statues of saints or little rosaries or little medals. It was very religious and whatnot, but boy, I loved that. I got my little plastic saints. I had Jesus and Mary and Joseph, and I think St. Jude, although I pretended he was St. Peter because I like Peter better than Jude. No offense, Jude, but who are you?
But it's forced Joshua to change some of his habits. He mentioned the other day that's like during reading time, you're supposed to ask questions. Like if you don't know what something is, you ask a question like, oh, what is this thing or whatever. But you're not supposed to be talking. So he said he had to move away from one of his friends because that friend just wanted to talk. And he wanted to get a star.
That star.
And that's our daily habits. That's our prayer, the sacraments. That's everything else.
Do you have a star system instituted at home?
No.
Jonathan, I'm going to have a star system instituted in the office. We're going to have everyone's name, Jonathan, Diane, Jackie, Larry, and we're going to have the little ladder with the stars and see how many people. Who do you think would climb that ladder fastest?
Jackie.
Yeah, she probably would. I was going to say it's a toss-up between Jackie and Diane.
Not me.
Jonathan's gonna. Well, let's move on.
Diane's so busy. I just see Jackie as she's an achiever. She
is an achiever.
And once she sets her mind on something, she goes.
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
Get out of the way.
Where Diane, we distract her, and things distract her too much to.
She's constantly spinning.
And that's not her fault. So I'm not. It's not a dig at Diane. It's more of just she's working on something she's supposed to be. And then it's like, hey, Diane, can you get this done for me? It needs to be out in 30 minutes.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, these are the things.
That's more on us and
it's
me.
Jonathan's fault. We're going to take all these stars and give them to Diane. So, all right. So we get all of these people. There's all these people clamoring towards hell. But what a great line here is what he says here now is okay, so we're not... this is the line that I want to point out. As the great sinners grow fewer, and the majority lose all individuality, the great sinners become far more effective agents for us. Every dictator or even demagogue, almost every film star or crooner can now draw tens of thousands of the human sheep with him. They give themselves to him, and in him to us. This is the sin or the danger of fame and celebrity, and particularly now in an internet world where anybody could be a celebrity or famous or attract a following or whatnot. You get all of this responsibility thrust upon you, and I think many aren't ready for that responsibility.
For sure.
They like the fame. They like, maybe if they make some money or some notoriety or power, if it's a politician or a celebrity. How many celebrities, these are actors. How many of them stick their nose into every bit of business of government or politics or whatever? It's like, you're an actor. Just because you've got a platform, you've got a camera, you've got money, that doesn't mean you're an expert or that we really care what you believe about the ethics, morals, politics, the way the world should be run. Why don't you just go learn your lines and make a movie? I'm not saying that people shouldn't use their platforms and their positions to forward good causes. I think we need to do that. But I think a lot of people see it as, it's very self-referential. It's real. I don't know that it's always about the common good, but it's more about, I don't want to be judgy, but I'm being judgy.
No, but and it's true though. There's at times, whether it's an athlete, a celebrity, a singer of some sort, who's 16 years old maybe even, and they're like, oh, I think everyone should be allowed to have an abortion. Well, how much life experience or what do you know about these things that you can really speak into this, and the damage that can do, especially if you're not well informed.
Or comment on economic policy. You who have $30 million in the bank and don't know the price of milk. That you should be commenting upon what ordinary people are trying to live with day to day. The absurdity of it. The absolute absurdity of it. You don't want me commenting on how the kind of gasoline you need to be putting in your car or motor oil, depending on... these are things I don't know. I don't know how to fix a car. But if you want me to talk about your spiritual life and morality, I can be happy to do that.
This program of Morning is Broken has been brought to you by...
Exactly. That is that's a real thing, that people, if they're going to speak out, they need to, am I an expert on this? Am I informed about this? Is there something I can do to be of help and of service? But otherwise, we can kind of stir up fame and fortune, power and influence. These things, people will follow them because people want leaders. Mm-hmm. C.S. Lewis one time talked about the best form of government. He said is not a democracy. For him, the best form of government is the benevolent monarchy. That you have a king who is good and who has the common good in light for his people and wants that for his people, that Christ the King really becomes the model, and the king images Christ on earth and does and serves his people as Christ would serve him. He imagines that would be the best form of government. And without a king, when there is not a king, he says, and I think he was kind of talking about like the United States, if you don't have a king, you will find one. You will make for yourself a king. You will make John F. Kennedy and Jackie O king and queen of the United States, and you will look to them and raise them up because you need that. You will turn that celebrity into a star, into a king. You'll raise them up to the heavens. If you think about when you say a star, you're raising them up to the heavens. You are making them into gods. That if we do not have a God, if we do not have a king, we will make them because we fundamentally need them.
That's interesting.
It is an interesting thought. It really gets you to... I'm not saying that we need to, throw down democracy and crown someone king or queen of the country. But I think we have to be very careful about what we lift up in its place. That we recognize if we don't have a king, then we better be darn sure that Christ is our king. Otherwise, we are going to be looking for a replacement.
Right. And his example is what would be a good king that is not in it for himself. That's probably not broken. And so that's going to be very hard to find because we're all human.
And we're not even saying that it's a hereditary kingship or a bloodline monarchy.
No,
somehow in the blood there's royal dignity or
any
divine
person,
dignity.
Right. Any person.
You could elect someone to be king. I don't know. Jonathan?
I could be king.
Sure.
And I would step down right away because I couldn't deal with all the people.
You need to get some more gold stars before we're going to crown you king.
Well, maybe I can get some people to offer theirs up. Jackie, Diane.
Let's move on. So the great age in which we live then is not so much personal temptation, but communal temptation.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, how easy it is to go with the flow. That once you're in the crowd and the crowd is moving this way or that way, you just move right along with them. You kind of head in that direction. And it's so easy to be a follower, to do what everyone is doing, to be playing the same games, to be watching the same programs, to be wearing the same fashion, to be, you almost don't want to stand out. I mean, we crave individualism and uniqueness, but at the same time, we want to melt in to be with everyone else.
So should I wear white pants after Labor Day?
After Labor Day? No. Do you even own white pants? I think white pants are a faux pas these days.
I don't own white pants. I'm just trying to stick out and go against the grain. It has been said that, Catholicism, living a Catholic life, you are swimming upstream.
Yeah, countercultural. That used to be, it still is kind of the way we ought to see ourselves, that we are countercultural, that we go against the culture. And so if you find yourself kind of happy in the culture, maybe I'm not living my Catholic life as well as I should be.
If you take a step back, look at the culture, and can realize, is this a good Catholic culture, or is it not? It's not. Then our lives should reflect that, and we should almost stick out like a sore thumb because we're doing things counterculturally.
Absolutely. So he then talks about taking that culture, taking these forms of government, and realizing how do we take institutional sin? How do we take institutional problems and focus upon those? And so you can see he talks about what went on in earlier centuries and the 1800s, and then as the 1800s moved on into the 1900s. So he kind of talks about, oh my goodness, religious toleration was almost everywhere on the increase, and there were many elements, however, that were in our favor: atheism, anti-clericalism, envy, the thirst for revenge, new paganism, etc., etc. And, where do we attack? How do we grab a culture? How do we get this thing? Ultimately, at the heart of it, there is a rejection of faith, materialism, secularism, and hatred. Oh my gosh, is he describing today? Rejection of the faith. That you don't need religion, you don't need God. We don't need to live in a kingdom of God. Materialism, we were just talking about that and how our culture just makes you sink into stuff. Mm-hmm. Secularism, that you just separate everything from the spiritual, everything from religion or overarching values even, and hatred. I mean, boy, do you see so much hatred, especially today on social media and in the news and what's going on, just to stir up fear and loathing among people. Yeah. This is what the evil one... Lewis was predicting what was happening, and I think he was right on, that this is what happens, that rather than focusing on individual sin, you focus on communal, institutional sin, and when that happens, these are the areas that you start focusing on. And people will just give themselves to it because they want to be in the crowd. Terrible. So, what we have now is a world that is so focused on kind of government, politics, etc., that he says there was a little bit of some virtue that crept in there, however. God's always at work, so we can never put that off. That he talks about the dangerous phenomenon called Christian socialism was rampant. And so there was a real understanding, particularly in the turn of the 20th century, and Pope Leo XIII, with Rerum Novarum, his encyclical on the dignity of work and labor and all of those things, really was kind of the first iteration of the church's social teaching, particularly when it came to rights of workers.
Right.
And you can't enslave people and indentured servitude or whatnot in these factory situations and in the Industrial Revolution.
Did we read that on this
We did
show?
not.
Why have I read that sometime, and I feel like somewhat recently, so, or at least excerpts from it.
Maybe. We might have referred to it. I don't know. But we've not gone into Rerum Novarum.
Okay.
All right.
But it's worth at least glancing over.
And then John the 23rd, he kind of came back and on its anniversary, 50th anniversary maybe? I don't remember. He wrote a great, what was his, Pacem in Terris maybe? On kind of in the middle of the century then, a reflection on what Leo XIII was talking about. So all of these things, it's like we want people to now begin. So let's take this good movement, social, Christian socialism, all of this stuff, and let's highlight now personal responsibility, personal freedom, and then let's have them take those freedoms and go too far with them. And that tends to be the problem with human beings, that we like to talk about rights and we'd like to talk about freedoms, but with rights and freedom comes responsibility and duty. And a lot of people sometimes forget that when we move into the sinful side of things. If we don't keep ourselves tethered to responsibility and duty, then liberty is going to be unchecked. And then that's going to cross some lines and hurt other people.
You mean liberty doesn't mean you just do whatever you want?
It does not mean to do whatever you want. Freedom does not mean the ability to choose whatever you want. Freedom means the ability to choose the good. That's what freedom means.
I've been lied to my whole life.
I am here to tell you the truth. So he goes through then talking about this liberty, and even then that in it, there can really then be stirred up, ironically, a deep hatred for personal freedom. Where again, we don't want the individual to make decisions for him or herself. So just as temptation, remember, the evil one wants to couch temptation not on the individual level anymore, but on the communal level. And so it is dangerous if people begin exercising their own personal freedoms and liberties and actually make good choices. We want to couch all of morality now in the social order, which he points out both ends of the spectrum equally fall into that trap. Communism, socialism, and fascism, Nazism. That both of these are taking and putting the state and the communal above the individual. That as an individual, you no longer have the freedom to make decisions to determine your life. Isn't it better if the state does that for you? Or on the other side, the fascist or the Nazi would say, we are here to our state. We need to look at how great we are and how we can change the world and everything and give everything to the state so that you can be free and whatever. It's a rally cry. Both of them are a rally cry for something that really is stripping you of your personal liberty and dignity.
The individual is lost.
The individual gets lost on one end or the other in service to the state, but they're both telling you that you're really preserving your own liberty and freedom. You just need to give it first to the state. As always, Catholic moral teaching falls somewhere in between, the via media, the middle ground. That if we have to have responsibility to our state, to society, But we also, society has a personal responsibility to the individual. Individual dignity is important. If we buy the tempter's lie that everything is about the community, then we've lost human dignity. You are now dispensable.
Yeah.
You're no longer a productive member of society, Jonathan.
Gone.
Gone. All right. So then we're going to get into some talk on democracy. But I think before we go down that rabbit hole, we're going to pause there. So that's going to open up a whole nother conversation. And I think we will look at that, the kind of the problems and maybe blessings of democracy tomorrow. We'll finish this week. This is not going to take too long to get through a commentary on the current state of affairs using Screwtape Proposes a Toast. And then, what next? I've got some ideas, and maybe we'll talk about them tomorrow before we dive back into the book.
Could be good.
All right. Until then.
Au revoir.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.